I'd like to welcome everybody to the September 15th, 2015 public hearing on growth management and funding. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you to this public hearing on growth management and funding on September 15th, 2015. If you wish to speak during the hearing of citizens, please pick up a card in the back of the room, print your name, and return the card to our board assistant, Zoe Marshall. At the appropriate time, I will call you up to speak in the order that the cards were received. At this time, I have 3 cards. So, for one night only, I'm going to give everybody 5 minutes because for some reason people can't make their argument in 3, so we're going to give everybody equal 5 minutes. At this point, I'd like to call up Kathy, and she's going to give us some background on what we have been discussing over the last couple of months.
Might work better if I'm on. Good evening. For the record, I'm done already.
Your time is up. Kathy, we had to take that time from somebody.
I told Scott and Lori I'd be really quick, but 3 times is a charm. Good evening. For the record, Kathy Ebaugh, Director of Planning, Sarasota County Schools. We are happy to bring this public hearing to you this evening. As you know, we've been working very hard over the last year. Since last October, when we asked for a year extension for the impact fee at that time, the impact fee moratorium at that time, we said we wanted to do it because we needed to better understand what the crystal ball was telling us in relationship to growth and development in Sarasota County. We asked for your permission and to conduct a growth management study, and as a result of that study, which we've been presenting to you in pieces since June, that was completed by Tyndall Oliver, we have now come to an understanding of how growth is going to impact us in the next 10 years. We've presented you some options and some examples of how those ideas can be paid for, and now we'd like to hear from our community about what their feelings of the study are. I do want to make 2 clarification points from this afternoon's workshop, things that we may not have completely articulated in the correct manner. One is, when it comes to the assessment of the impact fee, we said the impact fee would be assessed on new development and new permitting, and that's not actually accurate. It's assessed on new permits. So if something is already in the pipeline and has already received a permit for development and they're going to get their CO, they would not be assessed an impact fee. The impact fee would be assessed on permits that would be established after the reinstatement or the reinstatement of the impact fee. So that's one clarification. The second clarification is regarding the Caroline, you asked a question about locational issues in terms of funding. It is true that we have recommended reviewing and paying for a middle school, but we would have to pay for that middle school out of non-ad valorem taxes. If we used ad valorem money, that meaning money that's coming from the state, to pay for that middle school, then we would have to do a county-wide reassessment. But if we are using local monies or impact fee monies, then we have the discretion of addressing locational issues. So I wanted to address those things since they were early, and you had those questions earlier in the day. I want to make sure those were clarified before we had too much time go by. So
you also had said that the old impact fee, which was on a moratorium, would start, I guess, right away as soon as we took the vote.
That's true.
And that the new assessed impact fee, if we choose to change it, would take about 90 days to come in.
That's right. There's a 90-day public information period, at which time the change would happen at the 90-day point. So about the March time frame is when the new one would take effect. But by reinstating an impact fee, the old one would become in effect.
In effect.
For that 90-day period. So it's not like you're not
on any new permits that are pulled.
On any new permits, that's not even though.
And then it would due on when the certificate of occupancy was okay.
Right. Even though that the permit is assessed at the time of CO, it affects those that have been permitted since the impact fee moratorium has been reinstated or lapsed.
Thank you.
Thank you. And at that time, if there are no further questions, I'm going to give a quick schedule just so we understand of where we are going from here. We need, as we've talked many times, we need to make a decision by October 20th. As you know, you are not the board that imposes the impact fee. The impact fee would be done by the county commissioners. They would do so at their board meeting on December 8th, and because of the time that it takes to go through the county's process to get them the ordinance and all the rest of it, we need to make a decision by the October 20th meeting. You do have one other meeting if you so choose. We don't have anything currently scheduled. We heard from you this morning that there's additional information that you would like from us before you make that determination. So, as Lori mentioned, you have the option to put that on the agenda, but the decision does need to be made no later than the October 20th meeting. So that's kind of where we are going forward, and we look forward to working with you on the completion of this project.
Thank you. Okay, I have 3 cards at this time for speaking, and again, like I said, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to speak. Please don't push me on that. We've already gone from our 3 minutes to our 5 minutes. At 5 minutes, very much appreciate you respecting the board's wishes. We'll open the hearing of citizens. Our first speaker is Lucy Gallo. If you'd walk up where they just were, and the light will come over here in front of Zone Marshall, come on green. We're hoping that in 4 minutes it will go yellow, and then at 5 minutes it will go red, and your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Lucy Gallo. I'm a principal.
Hold on just a second, Lucy. Is that light on the microphone?
No,
Be red?
It's red.
Okay.
My name is Lucy Gallo. I'm a principal with Development Planning and Financing Group. We're a national consulting firm. Our focus is on public infrastructure
Closer to the mic.
finance,
I can't hear you.
economic and fiscal impact analysis, as well as impact fee evaluations. I have extensive experience with the American Institute of CPAs on government accounting and auditing, their publications, and have authored a number of impact fee articles for the National Association of Home Builders as well as the Government Finance Officers Association. I believe you all have received a copy of a technical memo that I prepared over the weekend because the draft report wasn't issued until Friday on behalf of the Manatee Sarasota Home Builders Building Industry Association. And I just wanted to run through that quickly with you this evening to share my initial observations. I know I'm stating the obvious here, but in my first point about just looking at the public enrollment trends, over the last 15 years, the school board has added 933 students, which is an average of about 60 students a year. And I think what you're looking at in terms of enrollment projections in the future are pretty enormous compared to the trends over the last 15 years. The draft report states 400 to 600 students annually, which is very different than what has been experienced over the past 15 years. I work extensively in real estate development, and I'm not so sure that a recovery has been established in Sarasota County yet. I think a recovery is starting, but we still have potentially another economic cycle that we have to go through over this next 10 years as is common. The economy goes through cycles, and with any 10-year period, typically there's some type of a cycle. So I think just that is an overlay. I do have some pretty serious concerns about the growth projections upon which the growth management plan has been founded, as well as the impact fee calculations. Under student generation rate and enrollment projections on my second observation, I completely understand the logic with which the impact of the draft report was looking at new home student generation rates, but yet, in my professional opinion, I think what that fails to realize is that over the planning period, your existing housing stock will age, and those houses of your existing housing stock will be producing fewer children, and in I guess a math sense, you call that regressing to the mean, so that, over time, that's how your student generation rate, balances out to a pretty standard average. But what concerns me about, even from a planning standpoint, to focus on new homes is I think it potentially overstates the number of students, because it does recognizing the capacity of students that the existing homes will be creating over that same time period. So I like to look at it in terms of how many net new students, not just students from the new homes. On my observation number 3, I think, and I understand that the source of the population projections, which form the basis for all of the planning that you're doing right now, are the Bieber 2014 median population projections for Sarasota County. On September 10th, Bieber issued revised population projections for the same time period, and those are lower than what have been included in your report. And I've included those tables in section 3 of my analysis, and I think it's just really telling to understand the range of those projections. Over the 40-year period, the growth could range from 18,000 to 170,000. And, in a financial world, that is an enormous range upon which to make informed decisions. Creates a lot of uncertainty when you have a range that high. So what I like to do when I have a third-party source like that, even though it's, well respected, is to make sure, how are those assumptions, how do I localize them? How do I take that data and make sure, do I need to fine-tune, or there are other adjustments that I need to better understand? Because when you look at, for planning purposes, a sustained growth rate of 1.11% over the next 10 years compared okay, closing, gone on too long. In closing, you all have my memo. I would love the opportunity to work in a volunteer capacity as part of a task force capacity to work with your staff and offer volunteer my expertise and time to help work with you all on the growth management plan. I've did a similar role with Sarasota County in fiscal neutrality through a volunteer basis, and I would love your permission to be able to work along side by side, because I think we all have a mutual goal of having a very successful plan and the care and well-being of all the citizens and the kids taken care of.
Thank you. Morgan Bentley.
Thank you, and again, for the record, I'm Morgan Bentley. I'm with the litigation law firm of Bentley & Bruning, and the good news is that Mr. Lobeck has agreed to give me his 5 minutes, so I think I've got plenty of time. I'm here on behalf of the Building Industry Association. Normally, we would have the members here, but they're at a retreat today. All but Pat Neal, who apparently wasn't invited to the retreat, is here. And we're here to talk about the legal issue here, obviously. We have some concerns. You just heard the methodology that Ms. Gallo pointed out, particularly the growth rates and the student growth rates, the charter school absorption rate, whether that meets the dual rational nexus test. That's our concern. I'm sure your counsel has filled you in on that and what the requirements are. They're pretty strict. I mean, you have some discretion, but it's a pretty specific standard that you've got to meet. And the way that this information is coming in, I'm not sure we're there yet. We may get there, but we'd certainly like the opportunity to work with you and your counsel and your staff to make sure that those numbers are right, because otherwise we all may be spinning our wheels. We have consulted with Keith Brickelmeyer, who is the well-known land use and constitutional lawyer, to help us with this. And what I'd like to ask the board specifically today is permission to interact with your staff and particularly with Mr. Hardy. And if I could get some consent to that today, it would be terrific, to allow us some access to him to work through these issues from the legal side of things. He's one of the best lawyers in town, and I think we could save y'all a lot of time if we're allowed to do that. So, seeing no objection, I will call Art tomorrow. Remember what we're asking. We're not asking here, we think from the Building Industry Association, that we might be a little early yet. The politics of this, as Ms. Gallo just touched on, we have a nascent recovery going on. It's good but not great. The last 2 weeks, as I like to say, my 401k looked a lot better 2 weeks ago than it does now. It shows you how fast this can turn around. And what we don't want to do is, like the Fed or something else, jump too soon. And again, looking at these numbers, the issue isn't quite clear as to whether we're at the right time. And again, we're not asking you to never consider this. What we're asking you for specifically is to renew the moratorium for 2 more years while we look at this. Specifically, that is the request from the Building Industry Association. But for right now, what we want is the ability to work through the issues, work through the numbers with your staff and with Mr. Hardy. And certainly, you know, the politics of it, you'll hear a lot more about that, I'm sure, from Mr. Lobeck and others. But we just think it's too early. We're just now getting our feet back on the ground. We're at numbers that were, yes, they're better than they were in 2009 and 2010. But when you're talking about meeting numbers from 2002, that's where we're at, is we're now back to 13 years ago. I wouldn't jump up and down and say this is the time that the race car is hitting top capacity yet. We're nowhere near that. And so I certainly would not want to pump the brakes on this when we're at this stage just because we're back to where we were in 2002. That would be, I think, ill-advised. So that's, for now, where the BIA is at. We thank you for your time and consideration. If anyone has any questions of me specifically as to what we're asking, as to Mr. Hardy, as to the moratorium itself, be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Very much appreciate you staying within your 5 minutes. Mr. Lobeck.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On those 2 points, ridiculous. The charter school assumption is that you're going to retain your same ratio, even though charter schools are going down in terms of new charter schools being added. You're being conservative about that. And the student growth rate is derived from the most respected state source that there is, that everybody uses. So, there's no merit to that. The fundamental thing to understand about this is that even if you reinstitute, and on the point of recovery, if you don't think we're in a construction recovery right now, you haven't been following the facts. We're solidly in a construction recovery that's trying to put off making growth pay its own way. The fundamental fact about this is that even if you assess impact fees at 100% of what the consultant has recommended, a rate that your staff has described as modest, you will still be diverting immense amounts of money, tens of millions, over $100 million from your revenue stream that you are now devoting to maintenance, equipment, technology, repairs, renovation, property taxes, buses, and the like. 100% impact fees. You will be diverting your revenue stream of $143 million from your sales tax and 1.5 mil tax, none of which is now used, as far as the sales tax at least is concerned, to pay for new schools. And $14 million in borrowing. That's with a 100% impact fee. Ms. Brown, you suggested maybe a one-third, one-third, one-third. That would bring the impact fee up to about 51% of what the consultant recommended. Slash it in half. And let me suggest to you that if you even consider doing that, don't do it in the 2050 area. Do like the county commission has done and said in the areas beyond the urban service boundary, effectively, it's 100% impact fees. And if you're going to slash them in the urban area, you do that. I'm asking that you not slash them, however, at all. And keep in mind the 2050 plan says growth way out east is supposed to fully pay its own way. It's supposed to have fiscal neutrality. You would be violating that by slashing their impact fees, whether it's 25% or 50% or 75% or anything. So that's another thing to put into the mix. But listen to the list of things that you'd be slashing. You would be neglecting your schools, and this matters to me as a parent of 2 children in your public schools. School security, better access control, fencing, and upgrades to the security network backbone. Updated computer replacements, needed building renovation and auditorium replacement, sidewalk repairs, replacing waste lines, restoring columns that are crumbling, bathroom renovations, responding to fiber access needs, lowering power bills by retrofitting schools with LED lighting, finishing the installation of thermal storage in the schools, which saves on your power bills, which instead you can give to teachers' salaries, and needed renovations and replacements. Even with full funding of impact fees, you will now be neglecting these needs. This is from staff's report to you in August. They say that. Ask Mr. Lempe. Under any of these 5 scenarios, even the full funding of impact fees, you will be diverting your tax revenue stream to paying for new schools and borrowing to build new schools. So you have to set impact fees at 100%. And if, as your school board association is asking the legislature, and if the legislature does what they ask on your behalf and allows you to raise taxes, there'll be pressure to raise taxes to make up for this neglect which you'd be forcing upon the system. Also, school concurrency is an option. Staff hasn't even presented that to you. You now have an interlocal agreement with the Sarasota County Commission that allows school concurrency to make growth pay its own way in a different fashion, to make those 2050 villages out there, all this urban sprawl where almost all of these new schools will go, pay for themselves through school concurrency. Why has that not even been mentioned? Now, if you have a 100% impact fee out there in the 2050 area, perhaps that will take care of it. But what I'm asking you to do is put aside whether you're associated with the real estate industry personally, whether you've gotten money from developers and campaign contributions, and just, I hope I can trust you. I hope the people of Sarasota County can trust you just to do the right thing for the school children, not neglect these other needs, but diverting this revenue stream to build new schools instead of making growth pay its own way, as everybody that's not in the development industry wants you to do. You know, there's no question about it. So I see no viable option other than 100% funding of the impact fee. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Terry Rawson.
My name is Terry Rawson. I'm a citizen of Sarasota County. I just came because people I talk to just can't believe that you're not going to consider or not going to put in impact fees, so that the schools do tend to pay for themselves. It just seems ridiculous not to have people that come to the area pay for some of this infrastructure that's needed, instead of having the taxpayers continue to have to pay for it. So I just want to put in a plug for full impact fees. It's just got to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rawson. That's all the cards I have for speakers. So at this time, we'll adjourn.